back to the Peace, Love, Hormones podcast. Today we are going to be talking about herbal aphrodisiacs, and this is actually a part 2 to the series that I'm doing on arousal and libido. So if you have not yet listened to part 1, which is really just about what is arousal, what is libido, what are all of the things that impact our arousal and our libido, the health and the vitality of it, and it's just a really short yet sweet and informational episode. It's about 20 minutes or so long, so I highly recommend checking that out either before you listen to this episode or afterwards. If you want to get right into the herbal aphrodisiacs, then welcome. That is what we're going to be talking about today. Herbs are very, very powerful. I'm a clinical herbalist, so I love herbal medicine. And of course, I bring nutrition and lifestyle and stress management and sleep and all of these things into play. But as a clinical herbalist, I learned in my school and education about pathology and disease, human illness, both acute and chronic, and how so much impacts that and how so many things, again, like I just mentioned, nutrition, etc., should be used to support this, but how herbal medicine can be such a tremendous and powerful support. So herbal aphrodisiacs are powerful catalyst for arousal and libido. And herbs can boost our arousal and libido by nourishing our cells and our tissues, increasing circulation to our reproductive organs and throughout the body, decreasing anxiety, increasing stress and nervous system resiliency, so how our body and mind responds to stress, increasing the capacity to do that, moistening dry tissues, warming cold tissues, toning the reproductive organs, regulating our hormones and our overall reproductive function, and a lot more. Herbal aphrodisiacs also aren't this exclusive group of herbs where all of the herbs within this realm are only aphrodisiac herbs. In fact, many of these herbs actually fall into a handful of other categories. As discussed in part 1 of the series, understanding what turns you on as well as what turns you off, and understanding and addressing any underlying health concerns is really crucial when it comes to understanding your unique arousal and libido. So let's take a really quick moment to reflect. What parts of your health may require a little bit extra attention right now? Are you experiencing any health struggles that may be impacting your arousal and libido? Perhaps you need support with stress management, anxiety, sleep, circulation, nutrition, hormonal or reproductive health. These are some things out of the many that we should do a little check-in to see if they are potentially impacting our arousal and libido. Because I'm guessing that a lot of you all are here because you want to enhance your libido. So it's first important to ask ourselves what is missing in our life, what is underperforming in our body that is causing low arousal or low libido. Because it's not always just, here, you take this and this is going to be the fix-all for everything. It's usually a holistic approach to things. And also I want to mention our relationship with our partner. If we have a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, a partner who we are intimate with, it is really important to make sure that our relationship with that person is very healthy. There is an open line of communication because after all, if there are issues going on in the relationship that are preventing you from feeling aroused and excited and desiring of sex and play, chances are drinking an herbal tea or taking an herbal tincture or drinking a cacao is not going to necessarily solve that. So a lot of things are important when it comes to our arousal and libido, but today we're going to focus on herbal aphrodisiacs and some things that impact our arousal and libido. As a little recap from part 1 of the series, our psychology, including the effects of trauma and depression and anxiety on our body, our physiology, including our hormones, our reproductive health, and our metabolic health, nutrition, stress, sleep, exercise, tissue health. For example, if our tissues are dry and cold, they're going to have a tough time producing the juices needed for play and sex. As well as medication. It's really important to note medication, and I left that out of episode 1. Forgot to mention that, but we're doing it here, so it's okay. But some medications actually have side effects that include depression, low mood, anxiety, and low libido. So it's important to also look at your medications to see what's causing what. Additionally, because some herbs don't interact well with medication. So that being said, that's a great segue for me to remind everyone that the information on this podcast is information. It's education. That's what podcasts are. They're educational platforms. This is not a doctor's appointment. This is not a medical appointment of any sort. So I'm not diagnosing or treating anything. I'm just providing education and hopefully providing inspiration for you to go do some personal research as well. Because of course, I don't know the exact intricacies of the health states of every single person listening to this podcast episode. So I may very well mention an herb that if you're on a certain medication that interacts with that herb then would not be applicable for you. So again, always do your own research, your own me search, because it's very important. And then I'm just going to mention this again. I know I just said it, but although we're going to be focusing on herbal interventions during this episode, nutrition and lifestyle are incredibly important. So I have plenty of podcast episodes beyond just part 1 of this series, plenty of podcast episodes that go into stress management, into nervous system health and resiliency, into nutrition, into all these different topics. So all of these are applicable and all of these relate to our arousal and our libido. To have a strong libido and arousal for life, these general areas do need to be supported. Our circulatory and energetic systems, or organs and our tissues, our nervous system, nutrition, of course, hormones and reproductive health, and then the emotional and spiritual area and realm of our health and well-being as well. And what's amazing is there are groups of herbs that support each of these systems and areas. So stimulants for the circulatory system. We have our uterine toning and reproductive toning herbs and astringent herbs, as well as our demulcent herbs to help with softening and moistening the tissues. We have our nervine herbs for the nervous system, nutritive herbs for nourishment, overall nourishment, hormone regulators, adrenal supporters for our hormone and our reproductive health. And we have our oxytocic herbs to support with sensual embodiment and the emotional and the spiritual aspect. So let's get into herbs. The wonderful thing about herbs is that many of the herbs that I'm going to be naming on this episode in the next few minutes are, again, going to be talked about from the lens of supporting arousal and libido, and therefore are labeled as aphrodisiacs. But many of these herbs, again, fall into other categories, meaning that they have other chemical constituents in them that support the mind and the body in varying ways, which is wonderful because you may be taking an herb for one thing, such as your nervous system, but it also supporting a bunch of other systems and organs of the body, such as your immune system and your detoxification perhaps, and your sleep, and maybe your skin or your hair. Herbs are very dynamic and very beautiful. They are unlike medications, which medications have this very either push or pull action. Herbs don't rarely ever push the body into a state or pull the body out of a state. It more so supports all of the organs, all of the cells that power our organs and the systems of our body and our mind to be more resilient, to be healthier, and really just supports us on a systemic level. So that's wonderful, right? And it's also worth noting that a lot of these herbs that I'm going to talk about, we should be taking them for longer periods of time to reap the full benefits. There are some herbs that I will talk about that can definitely help us in that acute moment. For example, many people think of a certain, perhaps herbal concoction where you mix certain parts of certain plants together with sugars and you ferment them and you drink them, perhaps a lot of them, and then maybe you do feel really in the moment and very sexual and sensual. Also known as beer, tequila, and alcohol. But as a clinical herbalist, the clinical herbalist that I am, it is not my intention or goal to give you all these quick fixes such as alcohol. Also, side note, alcohol is not good for our brain. It's not good for our body. It's not good for our reproductive health. So preferably we aren't drinking alcohol, especially when it comes to supporting arousal and libido, because that's very fleeting, very temporary, and in the moment. Instead, we want to focus on long-term things that help to build up our arousal and our libido in the long term. So we don't have to drink alcohol, something that's not great for us, in order to get into the mood. So Herbal Aphrodisiacs. Let me move my microphone to be a little bit more in front of my mouth. In the herbal world, an herbal aphrodisiac is a label for any herb that has been used throughout history to support libido. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of herbs that fall under this category. Some aphrodisiac herbs that fall under this category can also be labeled as anxiolytic herbs, meaning they help with anxiety, as Nervine herbs, support the nervous system, as adaptogens to improve our stress resiliency, as circulatory herbs, warming herbs, toning herbs, hormone regulators, cooling herbs, etc. A lot of these herbs have a lot of different classifications, and that may seem a little bit confusing when it comes to herbal medicine of like, why are there so many different classifications? It's because plants and herbs are very dynamic and again are here to go into our body and figure out what needs support and to support like genuinely on a deep level, on a cellular level, support the organs, the processes and systems of the body that need support for you specifically. On that note too, I want to go back to like no quick fixes here. I do want to say on average, it takes women about 30 to 45 minutes to truly become aroused. So even if you do want a little quick fix that's natural and herbal based, give yourself time, especially my ladies listening to this, give yourself time to really reach that place. And if you're a man listening on behalf of your female partner, give her time, and also play and love and all of these things, as mentioned in episode 1, should start outside of the bedroom, so to say. And we should be giving each other these little moments of love and affection and play and sensuality all day long. And so I already mentioned aphrodisiac herbs. A lot of these should be taken for longer periods of time. Some of them can be taken in the moment acutely, and you can feel some support, especially with the circulatory herbs. Those can work pretty quickly within the body and to increase circulation, especially topically. If you're applying topical circulatory herbals, that can be really, really beneficial for increasing circulation and providing maybe a sense of sensation, tingliness, and maybe or like a cooling effect. And that can, get you more in the mood in the moment. And when we talk about herbal remedies across the board, we always, when we're looking or working with someone, when we're working with someone in our clinic and we're deciding what herbs to give to this person to prescribe, so to say, we look at both a pharmacological assessment at the physiological processes, what is going on within the body, what is underperforming, what's overperforming, hyper, and how can herbs support these processes. We also look at the energetic assessment. How are the tissues? Are they hot? Are they cold? Are they dry? Are they moist? Is this person, do they tend to be more anxious? Do they tend to be more angry? Is their response to conflict to run away and hide? Or is it to confront the person? So the energetic and the pharmacological, physiological assessments are intertwined. They're both really important. It is my professional opinion that no practitioner should be looking at just the pharmacological or just the energetic. It should be both of them together to get a really well-rounded picture. So let's get into herbs. So some herbs are more like food than medicine, and that we should, again, just be taking them for a long time. If you just start changing your nutrition from eating fast food for every single meal, every single day, to eating really healthy food, you're not going to see the changes within a day, and not even within a week, not even within a few weeks. You need a few months to really reap the full benefits. And the same thing gets with a lot of herbs. Again, there are those super powerful medicinal ones where when taken at higher doses can really help with acute sickness and illness and issues. But a lot of herbs, even though they're herbal medicine, should be looked at as food. So let's get into some of these different types of groups of herbs that can be beneficial for supporting your arousal and your libido. So first, circulatory stimulants. These are a group of herbs that are utilized to increase circulation and blood flow across the entire body, but specifically to our reproductive organs to support arousal and libido. And if you're someone who experiences frequently cold hands or cold feet or stagnant menstruation, then it's definitely an area of herbs that you should maybe be focusing on for the long term. So again, like I mentioned earlier, circulatory stimulant herbs can be consumed or applied topically in the moment to increase circulation. But if you're experiencing these issues on a long-term basis and they're more chronic for you, then to work with these herbs for a longer period of time is definitely preferable. Some of these herbs that fall under this category that I love are ginger rhizome, Ceylon cinnamon, specifically Ceylon cinnamon because it's not toxic to the liver. It's really supportive of blood sugar and reducing inflammation as well and skin health. Rosemary, gotu kola, and again, you can use these internally or externally. And I highly recommend just doing a good Google search of an organic herbal oil for arousal and just play with that and see if you like it. And if you do like it, then maybe make your own herbal oil because it's easy. And well, I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's a very fun process and you're very connected to the herbal remedy then, and then you can apply it to yourself. Then we have uterine tonics. Definitely, these group of herbs should be taken for a longer period of time. You're not going to take a uterine tonic herb, such as red raspberry, one time, and then all of your reproductive organs are just toned. So definitely work with these herbs for a long time as well. Uterine tonics have an affinity for supporting the uterus and the tissues of the pelvic cavity. And I've heard a lot of people recently call the pelvic cavity, the pelvic floor, a bowl, and I like that better. It's a better visual. So the pelvic bowl, some herbs that I love for the uterus and for tonifying of the pelvic cavity and for the uterus, I love dong quai. It increases circulation to the uterus and it's warming. So you may want to reconsider this herb if you have heavy periods. It does not mean you shouldn't take this herb, or you can't if you want to. It just means maybe you take a break when you're on your period. Or another caveat is that you take this herb in a formula with other herbs that are a little bit more cooling to balance out the effects. As an herbalist, and anyone who's been following me knows because of my 3 tinctures that I'm a big fan of herbal combinations. The effects are so much powerful on the body and the mind, number one. And therefore, when you're taking something like dong quai, which is more warming, if you have a cooling herb in there, it balances out those effects. So that's why it's really important to also get the proper information about herbalism, because a lot of people are out there spreading misinformation about herbalism, saying that this herb causes this. And while maybe sometimes there is some truth to that, most people just don't know how to properly combine herbs, and rarely ever do I really recommend single extracts of herbs. There are certain things like elderberry, for example, and astragalus that I do love singularly, but most of these other herbs, I like taking them in formulations. Without digressing too much, I mentioned dong quai. I love red raspberry leaf. It also tones the uterus. It's very mineral rich as well. Chaste tree is a hormone balancer and uterine tonic, and it's also slightly astringent and has a nice little cooling effect. And also all of those herbs that I just named are in my Soothe tincture for hormonal health and overall reproductive health. Helps to prevent PMS and just completely avoid that altogether, supports your skin health and just overall your reproductive health and your fertility. Next, so we just did uterine tonics. Next, we're going to get into nervines. Nervines support the nervous system and can be classified as stimulating nervines, relaxing nervines, and tonifying nervines. So ashwagandha, milky oats, and licorice are tonifying. And I love licorice. It's in Soothe. I love ashwagandha. It's in my sleepy and nervous system support tincture. Passion flower, lemon balm, kava, and valerian root are very relaxing. Valerian root and passion flower are also in my sleepy formula. And then Damiana. I love Damiana. I want to mention it because a lot of people do take Damiana. Damiana is both stimulating and relaxing. And that may seem weird to have both of those actions, but picture a lymphatic massage. You are stimulating your lymphs in your body, but you're also relaxing and easing tension as well. Next would be nutritives, because nourished cells and nourished tissues means healthy hormones and healthy energy. I love nettle infusions for this, oat straw, and red raspberry leaf. Aromatic herbs can help to bring someone into their body and feel sensually embodied and have higher desire for sex and higher libido. And desire for sex, libido, same thing. And it can be really helpful just to smell these. They can be an essential oil diffuser. It could be some incense. It could just be smelling the herb in its whole form, which is what I love. So some aromatics would be like rosemary, cinnamon, some ginger, some peppermint, some cloves. But be careful, because valerian root is also an aromatic herb and does not smell very good. There are aromatic herbs that don't really smell the best, so be careful of that. Also, some aromatic herbs such as ginger and peppermint are carminatives, meaning they help to expel gas. So if you're going to be working with those, especially if it's beyond just smelling them, and you're actually like drinking or chewing or ingesting them, maybe hold off on getting in the bedroom and getting some sexual play on to make sure that all of the gas has passed out. Next are demulcent herbs, which help to moisten our tissues. Some demulcent herbs are slimy, mucilaginous herbs, and some aren't, like licorice, for example, which is also an adaptogens. Gosh, herbs are just so beautifully complex. It's not slimy, but it does moisten dry tissues, which is really wonderful. And our tissues that are dry need both water and oil, which is why I love flaxseed, because flax has mucilage, water, and it also has fats, which provides the oils. So it's very, very hormone modulating and also tissue lubricating, which is just wonderful that you get both of those together. So I usually recommend about 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed daily. You can make a little flax pudding, do whatever you like with it. Add it to smoothies, etc. And then let's get into astringent herbs are great if the issue with your low arousal and low libido is that you need some toning of your reproductive organs. And this goes for both men and women. I love red raspberry leaf for this, dong quai, and chaste tree. Again, all 3 are unsoothed. And I know I mentioned them before because these are just very beautifully healthy, dynamic herbs. Next would be oxytocic herbs. These herbs boost our love and connection and bonding hormone known as oxytocin. Cotton root bark is a great herb for this. Cotton, picture cotton t-shirt, and then root bark. Adaptogens are wonderful. I believe that almost everyone should be taking some adaptogen. There are many different to choose from: rhodiola, licorice, shatavari, ashwagandha, maca, etc. There are so many different to choose from, but I truly do believe everyone should be taking some form of adaptogen because they help to increase our resiliency to stress. So they support our body and our mind's response to the stressors that we experience in our life, because all of us have some exposure to stress. It seems like stress nowadays is a lot more chronic and never ending than acute and short-lived. So to really build our immunity and our digestion and our nervous system and our overall response to these stressors, adaptogens are these really powerful yet gentle at the same time herbal allies. So finding which adaptogen works best for you is a personal journey. I did just name some of my favorites. My absolute favorite, hands down, is ashwagandha. It's in my sleepy formula. Ashwagandha does help us sleep, but you can also take ashwagandha earlier in the day. It's just so deeply restorative, helps to boost libido. Mostly because it just helps us to relax, and it improves our digestive health, our immunity. It reduces inflammation. It supports with our hormone health. It is so incredible. It also boosts our cognitive health, and it's a very, very powerful herb, and it's been used for thousands and thousands of years. It has been used by so many different humans, and a really, really treasured herb across many different cultures and civilizations for millennia. And then the last group are cardiotonics. Cardiotonics are heart lovers. They're really great for the circulatory system and for our heart health. Hawthorn is for both the physical and the emotional heart. Hawthorn is the number one herb I think of when I think of cardiotonics and when I think of heart health. Motherwort is also really powerful. Linden and lemon balm and ginger as well. There's actually a postpartum tea blend that I make for my sisters now that they're in their baby making years, and it includes both lemon balm, red raspberry, and linden as well. So it's very powerful. Okay, so those were some great groups of herbs. In conclusion, you really just have to figure out what needs support in your body and your mind, and then you go and you choose your herb or herbs, preferably multiple, to support you with that. And nothing happens overnight except for sleep. So really working with these herbs for 8 to 12 weeks, or maybe even longer than that, because you just love them so much and you're feeling so amazing. But working with these herbs for a really long time to let all of the benefits cultivate within your beautiful, beautiful, unique, and powerful body to really reap the full benefits. And you will feel a lot of the benefits pretty quickly within the first week or two. But again, especially when it gets to chronic stress, which has created a whole host of other issues within the body, it may take a little bit longer. So I just wanted to provide that little insight there. I always tell you all, especially those who are taking Soothe, to really give it 3 full menstrual cycles in order to reap the full benefits. Not to say you won't feel benefits within the first few weeks within the first menstrual cycle. You will, but to really give yourself at least 3 months, preferably even longer, to really work with herbs, to let them build within your body, within the systems, and to really support you from the ground up. Again, a lot of these herbs, especially ashwagandha, I just thought of ashwagandha because we just talked about it, support you on like such an incredibly deep layer and have been treasured for thousands of years across, again, civilizations, practitioners of all different backgrounds, and so many different humans. So again, we love herbs here, and if you have any specific questions or want me to dive deeper into specific herbs, please let me know. I have an episode queued up all about ashwagandha. We are going to do a deep dive into ashwagandha because there is a lot of misinformation out there. So I want to clear some things up because ashwagandha is an incredibly powerful and treasured herb across many different medicines and cultures. And then last thing I'll say is I'm going to post recipes on my website within the show notes of this episode for fertility boosting and libido boosting recipes. So I'm going to include a recipe for my fertility sexy energy balls. I'm going to include a recipe for my let's get it on rose cacao. And then I'm also going to include a recipe for an orgasmic oxymel. All of these are herbal based. All of them are 100% natural and organic and delicious and healthy in so many different ways and will support you with arousal and libido. Again, these recipes will be within the show notes of this episode, and the show notes of this episode are going to be linked up in the description of this episode. So whether you're listening on Spotify or on Apple, or you're watching on YouTube, the link will be in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you liked this episode, please do share it with a loved one or a friend, or share it on your social media. If you have any topic recommendations for future episodes, please let me know in the comments below. And until next time, peace, love, hormones.